say, maybe this is just a slight misread of Mighty's situation, and he is just going with the best decks straight up as he sees it. But to start things off with this Quest Rogue against the Druid, it's eternally a close matchup, right? A debatable matchup at the very least, with I think there being very good arguments as to who can pull into the lead on either side. Obviously, Mighty going for, hopefully, the most aggressive start possible, getting down these SI7 minions to start getting the quest completed and threaten lethal before Kazakhstan comes down. But for lambyseries, he's just got to do this. Play your cards and you're going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, when we saw this matchup yesterday between Hyung and Trahizan, it was honestly looking pretty grim for Trahizan until he top-decked the SI7 Informant in particular. I think when Rogue manages to put forward the threats that are outside the range of Feral Rage, of Lunar Eclipse, etc., then they are really in business. But so far, with no opening minion for Mighty and no turn 3 so far, it looks like he has to already rely on great top decks from this point.
Yeah, and already, the worst thing about playing against Druid is just the subtle hints of information that you get about how bad things are looking for you. Like when you see Cold Tooth Mine, you're like, oh god, I know he's got Kazakhstan. And then you see Overgrowth and you're like, oh god, I know he's going to be able to play it in the next couple turns. It's really obviously looking absolutely miserable for Mighty, even ignoring his own hand, which is about as bad as you can humanly draw.
True. He needs a passage. Oh my goodness. Disaster. This is
first game on stream. How?
This one doesn't count. The next one is his first game on stream.
Okay.
And Lamby knows what's up. He's like, oh, he passes again. Meanwhile, Lamby coined Overgrowth, now has Guff into Hero Power, into spend your last mana on Nature Studies if you want. It's just too clean.
Do you want to debate whether or not he should have kept the Extortion, or do you want to just give him a pass on this one?
Oh, did he keep it? Okay.
He did keep an Extortion.
I would not keep that versus Druid. I'd hear the argument versus Burn Shaman, other decks that want to get on board a bit quickly. But, I mean, you could say it's a guaranteed SI proc, but if you're just going to send it face, it feels like that's not nearly enough, right? You need minion pressure, consistent damage going through.
And the worst thing is, like, this is typically the best card against Druid, right? This is the ultimate anti-Druid tech card because almost every version of Druid is almost entirely spells. But here it just doesn't even matter. Like, he has so much mana. He's just going to play Kazakhstan this turn anyway. It doesn't do anything.
It stops Lamby from playing Moonlit with Kazakhstan the same turn.
I mean, he just wants the hero power anyway. Like,
Yep.
Yeah, even then it's not good.
Oh my goodness. I repeat, this game does not count. All right, Mighty. Next one is your first game on stream. All right, what are we looking for?
Yeah, I guess Staff. Annoyo.
Born.
Yeah.
Clockwork.
Sure.
Boombox.
Probably, yeah.
Oh, he took Army Knife though.
And then Book. That looked like a very winning selection of treasures.
Yeah, that looked very winning indeed, especially with the guidance in hand. Are you serious? He's just drawn every spell in the deck outside of Secret Passage, the good spell.
Yeah, true. And what Swindle as well. Like, every bad spell in his deck, he's drawn and none of the good ones. Oh.
Jeez. All right, we need the greatest gizmo of all time, Mighty. So, Undercover Mole into what Druid card can help him here? Pouch into play your own Kazakhstan, but you have to play the Pouch on 9 mana.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like Prep Pouch Yogg. Like, we're getting there already. And even then it wouldn't be active because he's only played like 3 spells or something this game. But I don't know, like alignment, would that do anything? I don't think so.
Didn't even get the mole. The plan is all falling apart, Derek. Okay, a somewhat annoying neophyte. Staff.
Yeah.
GG. Okay, time to rack our brains for even more creative and completely impossible solutions. Smuggler into, he has only played 2 SI cards, so it's going to summon a 3-drop.
Oh, like, if he can get Smuggler up to 9 and then get King Crush and give it Wind Fury, I don't know. Like, it's rapidly approaching that territory. And then, like, bounce King Crush with Tenwu and play it again for 36 damage.
Now you're thinking in duels, Derek. Agent Skulker. Play a Gizmo. Bad, because there's still 1 snake left after that with Reborn on it.
Yeah, maybe Tenwu with SI instead, just to kill off a couple more. But it looks like he's actually just going all face. And you know what? That sounds like as good a chance of winning the game as any.
Yeah, fair play. Maybe in the world where Lamby got 0 heal or armor, because there is just no way he's going to win on a board-based game plan at this point.
Yeah, I respect it.
This guy's toast.
The hand does have 1 more Wicked Stab. Meanwhile, Lamby just kind of playing with his food, I guess. How can I win the game? Let me count the ways.
How much are we looking at here? He can go double book plus Moon Touched on this turn, which is 14, 18, 21, as I count it, so not quite lethal.
All right, so we are looking at a possible Scabs top deck out for Mighty.
Mm-hmm.
Which
except he's not running it.
Oh, he's not running it. Oh, okay. We are looking at 0 outs for Mighty. Yikes.
Yeah, that's GG.
Unfortunately for Mighty, even though this doesn't count as his first game on stream, it counts towards the match score. lambyseries is going to go up 1-0 with the freest win of his Grandmasters career. I think it is no exaggeration to say just a complete whiff on the draw from Mighty. Like, you can say that Quest Rogue sometimes runs up into this, especially when they're on the play, given that they always have to allot 1 card space in the opening hand to the quest itself. And we can also maybe try and nitpick the SI7 Extortion keep, but the rest of the draw, it cannot be denied, was disastrously unlucky.
Was that a cat in the corner of Lamby's screen? I think I saw, like, it looked like a cat with a flea collar, whatever it was. It looked incredibly cute. But hopefully we'll get another look if he wins again. But hopefully Mighty can at least win 1, even if there is an adorable cat on the other side. I mean, there you have it. If nothing else, it's a memorable first game, right? Like, it's been a while since we've seen the absolute best possible hand against the literal worst possible hand. Like, that was as stark as it can possibly get in that instance. So, I don't know. Mighty's got a story to tell, if nothing else, about his first game on stream in Hearthstone Grandmasters. But with the Druid out of the way, I think that is really one of the scariest decks. Like, Mighty, despite having an aggressive slant to his lineup with, you know, the Quest Rogue, the Libram Paladin, if not aggressive, is like a fast mid-range deck once it gets going. And of course, the Quest Shaman can get off to a pretty strong board-based start. He's still weak to Druid, I think is my point. He's not quite quick enough to be able to just get underneath them and kill them with the likes of Face Hunter or Shadow Priest. So with that out of the way, now he can start focusing more on taking down the other decks from lambyseries. Which might still be a tall order, because up next is Demon Hunter, which is very arguably the best deck in the game right now.
I mean, looking at Mighty's matchups with the Rogue, I would think that the Druid is probably one of the only good ones. Mighty banned away Lamby's Priest, right? And we saw yesterday just how difficult it is to get through Burn Shaman with their unlimited freeze for the entire board. So maybe Mighty's just trying to get this win versus Fel Demon Hunter. It's not a particularly good matchup, but definitely not unwinnable. It's one of those decks where if you do get to the point where your Smuggler into Informant curve gets above 3 health, 4 health minions, then the Demon Hunter can very much struggle to deal with all of that.
Well, for the moment at least, Mighty has got himself pretty much the perfect hand, though, with a gorgeous 1, 2, 3, 4 curve. Smuggler, oh sorry, SI7 Smuggler to follow up would be a nice way to top this one off. However, with the glide in hand for Lamby, that maybe complicates things a little bit. And I think the glide is actually playing on Mighty's mind, because he knows that with the studies having been used, it's playable on this turn, and so he deviates away from the Skulker.
Yeah, I think this is very clever from Mighty. It's very, very rare that the Demon Hunter commits a studies that early, unless they are just going for the turn 3 glide. You see the very big nod from Mighty there. He knew that was coming, and he did hedge around it. Obviously, still in a terrible spot because he loses his clean curve, but at least he didn't get the coin shuffled back in the deck. Okay, Operative and Foxy Fraud Swindle picked up in the post-glide hand. That's a pretty good recovery.
Yeah, this is fine. Secret Passage as well, maybe to go for next turn? I don't know, probably not, but it's reaching that point where Passage can be used just for a smuggler, an agent, maybe an operative next turn as well. It's really starting to come together. But for lambyseries on the other side, his own hand is absolutely no slouch. Quest completion clearly guaranteed on this turn. And with this amount of card draw, he can't be that far away from an Arcanist.
It's just a question of which way he wanted to go about it, because he could have over-completed Quest and discounted one more draw by going right-hand Spectral into left-hand Spectral, but I much prefer the way he went about it. With the left-hand Spectral, see what you get. If you miss on further card draw, you can trade away the Viper. And he did get further card draw with the Need for Greed, though, so it all works out very, very nicely, and he still maintains that other Spectral, which can be outcastable in the near future.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking you have to insta-slam that one down while it's in the outcast position, but Lamby very cleverly realizes he has alternate routes, finds the Need for Greed, and discounts 6 cards instead of the usual 5 or even less that you would get off the second activation of Quest. So he's got a very fluid hand right now. He can do a lot of different plays at the same time in terms of removing and clearing and also card drawing at the same time. It's looking very, very strong.
Biomatic picked up for Mighty for a little bit of disruption. I think he picked Skull there because it's going into 5 mana. That would be very awkward for Lamby. Okay, he picks Performers. Fair enough. The thing that Mighty really wished he had for this turn, though, I would say, is Cult Neophyte, because he's finally starting to build a board that is threatening. Quite a bit of health and attack represented here. So any difficulty added to Lamby's clear potential would have been a huge benefit to Mighty, but for Lamby here, it is all too simple. Arcanist, Magtheridon, Immolation Aura with the perfect discounts. He's able to clear everything and stick a 12-12, which Mighty currently cannot combo with the Assassin to remove.
That's actually true, yeah. Even with a discount of the Skulker, it doesn't quite work. I believe with a Shadow Step off the top, though, he actually now can, because he can go Skulker, Step, Skulker, and then get the discounts to play the SI7 as well, which also completes another layer of Quest. It's looking like a very clean turn from Mighty. And this was always kind of the concern for lambyseries, right? Which is why I didn't necessarily think it was quite so obvious of a Magtheridon, because obviously a 12-12 on board, fantastic. You start moving towards winning the game very quickly. But now your ability to kill scabs off of the quest reward is massively limited while it's in stealth. So he went pretty all in with that play. It was quite a big gambit. And now he's actually fairly flimsy in terms of being able to fight back against Mighty's game plan.
It's true, sometimes you do earmark the Magtheridon to deal with scabs, but Lamby knew that the Assassin cost 5 at that point, and he had also seen all of the gizmos by that point as well. So from his perspective, it needed to be something exactly like this, the Skulker Shadow Step into combo out the Assassin, or complete another layer of quest and get exactly Fizz Flash. So I think it was a fine risk to take for Lamby here. He's still not very far behind at all. And in fact, he just has Kurchus online the next turn.
All right, we're looking for a 3 or less costing SI minion here to play Scabs on the same turn. But that is 1 mana off being able to play Scabs right here, pretty unfortunately. I do imagine you're still just going to play it here, and then honestly, you probably just go for the passage as well to fill out the rest of your mana.
Yeah, that's right. There's quite a few good hits on the passage. Like, obviously, Smuggler would be the absolute dream. Getting the maximum amount of pressure going into a Kurchus turn to deny the Kurchus itself is generally the right way to go. But I think Mighty could just settle for an agent It's not terrible. Question is whether he commits the Shadow Step as well to delete it from the deck. I think I would do that here.
Yeah, I agree. I think you just want burn, and I know that you can Shadow Step Scab, sorry, for more of the gizmos later on. But just burn off the top, I think, would be a little bit juicier. Card draw as well, but he disagrees, wants to get that extra activation of Scabs, maybe of SI. It can equal a little bit more damage if you leave it in there.
Fair enough. Well, this is a size of board that Demon Hunter truly does struggle to deal with, and if Lamby just commits to playing Kurtrus, he knows he'll be dead to Battlegrounds Battlemaster. Is he dead to double Wicked Stab? Yes, also, if he doesn't swing with the Eldraki Warblade. So maybe he could take the risk, go for the Kurtrus plus the Chaos Strike and remove a bit of the damage, because I just don't feel there's any alternative to playing Kurtrus here. He's used a big Immolation or a clear already, not very likely to get another clear, so he just has to pray there is no BGBM.
And I think actually he does just survive it now at 1620, yeah, with the heal from Chaos Strike. So it's a very nicely set up turn. It would have to be exactly BGBM plus like a stealth off the one remaining gizmo in hand to be able to get lethal, or the weapon, of course, as well, to close it out. But that's obviously not there for Mighty, so he has to find another way to close out the lethal, and he has to do it very quickly because this is getting scary. I'm looking at like applying the stealth to one of the attacking minions just for literally +2 attack and just launching everything at face. He has to close out the game now.
There is value to leaving stealth on your minions, though, because they cannot be rushed into. Magtheridon, you've seen already.
True.
But definitely Fizz Flash on the Kurtrus always has to happen, I think. It just makes Lamby's life so much more awkward in terms of clearing potential and also just card space. He goes for the Spyomatic instead, though, and of these options...
Oh, it's got to be Barrage, right? Like, I know it sucks giving them a good clear here, but card draw is just too strong.
True. Since he hasn't gone for a Neophyte. Probably just limiting cheap card draw is Mighty's best route towards Disruption. Lamby can barrage to get rid of the 3-2 and the 2-2. Can he maneuver it to get rid of 8-8 instead with the Arcanist? I'm not seeing it.
I mean, he could like bump into the 3-2 with the Snake, Eldraki the 2-2, and then Arcanist Barrage would kill off Scabs. But I honestly think there's probably a better way to go about clearing here. I think you want to set your sights higher than that.
He is just going to go for a glide angle. I think this makes more sense. He needs much more mana to work with, so discounting the fresh hand, maybe getting even further card draw, makes a lot of sense to me. The skull you picked up from the studies is very awkward, and that's he can discount his deck even further by playing Kurtrus, but unfortunately the skull will not be playable by that point.
I never even thought that you could remove the effect of the Fizz Flash by shuffling it back in and drawing it again. It's pretty funny.
Oh, I did not know that either. Good catch. Mighty. Very scared of another Immolation or other, I guess, but Lamby still has to tank the 7, only gonna heal up for, the 8, and is only gonna heal up for 3, so he's down to 13 after this turn resolves, I believe.
Yep. There are outs.
Yeah. Oh, he has tradables. He needs Wicked Stab and... Well, he has the Noggin Fog generator, so it's literally just Stab that he needs here for lethal, or BGBM.
Oh, Stab. He can still get Battlemaster with one more tradable. Ooh.
Oh my goodness. It's not over yet.
Could have applied plus damage, bounced it, played it again. It doesn't quite work, does it?
I think he's going to replay it and then apply the stealth.
Yeah.
And then also play the Spyomatic because he just wants maximum disruption.
Okay.
It might even be a Viper angle. Yeah, that works, right? With the smaller Scabs.
True, yeah. Scabs into Snake.
Yeah, this works out very nicely for Mighty. He can play the Viper, get rid of the lifesteal weapon, which is something that Lamby absolutely needed to truly stabilize after this. Apply the stealth and disrupt the top draw from Lamby's deck. Give him not Jace, right?
Yeah. Something bad.
I mean, yeah, sure.
While that turn was cool, this turn has to be cooler, right? He's not playing the Kurtrus. Oh, news. Either way, that is a nasty top deck to get here. Look at all of this. Immo, Fury. You can get down the Jace as well. That has to be a clear, right? With the Fel Barrages in there as well to take out the Scabs.
The thing is, he would have to pre-commit the Fury to guarantee that the 9/5 stealth gets hit by Fel Barrage, because there's a world where the Jace casts Fel Barrage first before the Immo, right? Well, I'm not honestly sure how the order would work about this, but with 2 Fel Barrages played, I think this is guaranteed, right? Yeah, because even if one of them casts first, the other one will cast after alongside Immolation Aura. So cleverly spotted by Lamby. Any damage that he can avoid tanking is, of course, a huge deal here. Oh, sorry, he had only played one Fel Barrage at that point.
But he got it off the top. Oh
okay,
my goodness.
He saved.
Oh, that is disgusting.
Yes, it is. Lamby back up to 12, but Mighty has only Gizmos at the moment. Does he have outs from further card draw? No, that's a Neophyte. That's too late, far too late.
Oh, okay, so he can bounce both of these bats back. Try saying that 5 times fast. To stop the lethal on this turn. He obviously needs to be somewhat afraid of performers, but honestly, yeah, I think his best bet. Okay, apply the stealth so they can't attack anyway. Send everything else face. He knows what's up. It's just about whether or not this will get there on the following turn, or if lambyseries can pull something out of the bag.
Literally playing the entire hand. He's all in, and I think that is absolutely the correct line. So we're looking at what type of outs for Lamby here. Obviously, Kurtrus already gone, and both the Furies as well. Sorry about those bugs. So it's Fellscream Blast Studies, and doesn't do anything. He's just dead. I think Lamby was looking for the studies out to find Kurtrus 3/4 Kurtrus.
Or even just Fellscream Blast, right? Could have kept him alive at 1. Or I guess with the Fellscream, the Expendable Performer, sorry, he could have stayed alive at 2.
Yeah, Mighty representing 10 damage on board, and that is going to be enough to seal the game. That was nerve-wracking, so back and forth.
And like Mighty's levels of top deck here are so bad. His deck is just all gizmos. He doesn't actually have any kind of reasonable threat here. Even getting a 5-mana 1/1 off the mold, but it just not mattering. Such a cool game from Mighty, and such an interesting one from lambyseries, because on the one hand, he had a very, very nice hand, right? He curved into a nice early glide. He got himself plenty of card draw afterwards, good board clear, early Kurtrus, no worries whatsoever. But I don't know, I want to circle back around to the point of the Magtheridon, but not even to say if he was wrong, but just to kind of question my stance, because the more I look at that game, the more I think my initial theory that it would have helped him to clear more boards wasn't even necessarily correct, because he was gliding his own hand so much. He wouldn't necessarily have had Magtheridon alongside the other threats he needed to be able to get there. And after Scabs comes down, Spymaster Scabs, Magtheridon's just getting sapped back to the hand anyway, so it's not going to be a real threat at that point.
Right.
So, I don't know, lambyseries, if I look back on it, I think probably had the right idea.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. The only turn I would question is this right here, whether the Jace could have been a little bit safer. Maybe Lamby was thinking that he really needed the miracle outcome from the Jace to get back in the game anyway, but I think he could have guaranteed the clear on the stealth Scabs if he had traded the 1/3 into the 3/1 and then Furied into the other minion. Of course, he would tank some damage though, so not saying that's the correct line, but the Chaos Strike did bail him out from the Jace pan out that he got. In the end though, of course, Mighty still took the win, and he will be moving on now to the Libram Paladin, build of which is quite greedy at the top end because the Mutinous is slotted in there, taking the place of Banana Man. I thought that card is uncuttable.
True. Yeah, I guess now that it's down to, what, a 3-mana 2/1, it's been deemed as a little bit less core in the deck. But you make a good point. It is, I guess, a list that's a little bit lighter on minions in the mid game. I don't know, or I guess just deems that in the Libram version overall, maybe people were wrong, and has come to his own conclusion as to how you should structure the mid game. But either way, I think the core game plan stays very much the same here for Mighty. You're looking for those early game minions, not this, basically. It's Questro Gate all over again. But all with the Iron Deep Trog off the top. All of a sudden, the entire landscape of this hand changes.
Been bailed out. And Lamby, if he wants to go full respect, can coin Fel Barrage to deal with the Trog and the copy that comes out of it. But he's going to commit the hero power, and that means that Mighty will have a guaranteed hand of a doll target.
Ooh.
Alternative, Libram plus Librarian. I think it's pretty nice to get another threat on board as well.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the only way they're clearing both is Immolation or a coin hero power, or like a Fel Barrage coin hero power, right? Which I think I'd be okay with in either instance.
Well, Lamby with the double Fel Barrages in hand surely knew that this and hand of a doll were possibilities, and he would still be able to get rid of the Trog this way. And if he wants to fully clear the board, would still have to commit the coin. So that's kind of the argument for getting rid of the Trog the turn before. You tank less damage on that turn. But still works out decently for Lamby here in that he's able to weave in the hero powers every single turn, right? Buff that Kurchus up nice and early. Oh, wow.
Trogs on Trogs all the way down. Love to see it for Mighty. This one a little bit harder to clear. Obviously the option is there, but it's not just like Aldraki Warblades off the top that's going to clear it off. It takes a little bit more. And weirdly enough, for a deck that has such a paltry mid game, like the number of 4 and 5 drops you have is incredibly low. Mighty's hand is actually coming together pretty nicely here. Like, he can be upset at his Trog being cleared, but he has been bailed out so heavily here. This curve is perfectly fine.
The Vindicator's a nice pickup as well to keep cycling through the deck. The interaction of the cards that draw you holy spells and the fact that one of those holy spells is Hand of the Doll is so powerful in Paladin. It just lends the deck so much more consistency in what was previously a curve deck that is very, very punished if you don't play perfectly to that curve. So Vindicator here into see which spell he gets. Probably buff on an Acolyte, like double buff on an Acolyte. With the Divine Shield here, make it as difficult as possible for Lamby to clear all of these. Nicely positioned Vindicator as well to kind of break up the Acolytes, make Fellscream Blast a bit harder to use.
It's so annoying. Even with attack with the Carriel to reduce the other Libram, you can't quite get your Acolyte into the range where Hero Power Arcanist Immo doesn't clear it. But you can remove a lot of other breakpoints, right? Which I think Mighty is very cleverly doing here. Even if he forgot that Libram gets reduced and he could have buffed another minion.
I think you still committed here, just except you missed 1 damage. But
yeah, 100%.
The question of what to buff is not clear. My instinct says the 2/4 Divine Shield, but alright. Goes on the 4/2. I suppose that removes like a hero power into some sort of Fellscream Blast. But then there's still a Divine Shield in the way. There's just too many different combinations to have to think about here. But for Lamby, this is still going to be a very clean Arcanist into Immolation Aura, despite Mighty's best efforts.
Yep, very nicely done by Lamby. Mighty is going to be needing basically another bailout off the top here because this King Varian is still so far away. And honestly, quite a lot of his deck is just unplayable here. A lot of 7, 8s, and 9s off the top that would really slow him down. Broom on the bottom end is basically another one of those cards. And it's that situation that Libram Paladin runs into so often, right? With limited card draw, limited cards that are just good to play on their own, like well-statted individual minions. it takes a little bit too much time to warm up, which is why most players have deviated away from it. Having said that, there's how much board clear potential here? Like 7 damage he can do if he slams everything in with the amount of mana he has available.
Right, but it is very, very awkward. I feel like he can try and hold out for one more turn because technically Lamby doesn't really have a way of capitalizing on Magtheridon sticking to the board the way Paladin does with buffs, no copy effects, no Wind Fury possible. So maybe Mighty can hold out for a Lord Barov top deck. Libram Paladins these days have cut Libram of Justice because there are not that many decks that want to play huge minions these days, just instead relying on the Barov plus Broom combo. Spectral? That's greedy.
I'm just wondering how much he wants to actually kill off this 3/3 Divine Shield, because I-Beam obviously does that very nicely with the Fell Scream or the Hero Power, I suppose. But the weird thing is that with those Librams locked inside a Divine Shield, it's honestly not that bad to leave it alive because you just know nothing else is going to get buffed. You can't do any like continual buffing with Librams of Wisdom and Broom in order to clear off your 12/12. So it's close. I think in the end, though, I was kind of leaning towards what you were saying as well of just going for the Spectral site.
Yeah, I think in terms of immediate outs for Mighty there, I don't think there was lethal potential with the number of cards he had in hand. Lamby could be respecting the possibility of Libram of Hope, maybe putting a taunt in the way that's a little bit too awkward because it's not as though just progressing your quest and pushing Magtheridon face immediately wins you the game. However, something went wrong with this turn. After he had taken the I-Beam, I think there was the potential to go like Fell Scream to pop the Divine Shield and kill the 1/1. You could play the I-Beam. You could still play Spectral Sight and Chaos Strike, I think, because you would start then with the Chaos Strike and then just outcast the I-Beam from the left. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I'm inventing mana, but certainly something went wrong there.
Yeah, just messy all around from both players here this game. Couple of little mistakes starting to creep in, which again, we need to see tightened up because these are razor-thin margins in this game. lambyseries could be looking at lethal on this next turn. Like a hero power face could be the difference between winning and losing this game. And for Mighty, not too far off in his own right, not too far off from killing this Magtheridon, interestingly enough. If these Wisdoms only cost 0 instead of 1, honestly, like, might be able to do it, if not very, very close.
Yeah, I think it would have been possible, especially with a zero-cost Noble Mount, but missing out on a second Libram discount means that he can't quite Conga line the Wisdom so efficiently here. Still, though, starting to put a dent into this Magtheridon, and just the amount of minions remaining, given the fact that Lamby had used so much removal, is also a threat here. Anyway, quest progression being a turn slower because of the bungle on the last turn.
I don't think it matters. I think that's just lethal.
Oh, yeah. We are just looking at the Fury and Hero Power.
Nobility burns within you.
Indeed, nicely done, lambyseries. I mean, again, I think both players will be a little bit unsatisfied with that performance. Like, they both effectively missed a damage face, and lambyseries took a little bit of extra damage than was necessary. But overall, I don't know. For Mighty, it kind of speaks to the build he's got, as you were talking about, with the only one Alliance Bannerman that slows down on your draws early on. But, you know, for Libram Paladin, his draw wasn't that bad, in all honesty. He got a few 1-drops. He was able to buff them. He had a reasonable mid-game, considering the deck only runs 2 4-drops and 2 5-drops. One of those 4-drops is Samuro as well, which doesn't even really count in terms of actual development in your mid-game plan. And still, the deck just wasn't really doing anything. It had too many dead draws that it could get, and without exactly Aldor Truthseeker or exactly Cariel Rome, the hero card, sorry, on turn 7, he was just way too far behind.
We could have been looking, to be fair, at a very different game if Lamby had missed on either one of his Fell Barrages, because Mighty did run up into Double Trog, but you can easily make the counter argument of, well, how often do you draw Double Trog that early in the matchup when it is obviously the most punishing the earlier you play it? Still tough to say. I think Libram Paladin has just not necessarily been a favorite of many pro players just because it feels so bad to get draws like this. There's very little comeback potential if your deck is not kind to you. But, you know, ladder stats and players like Fury Hunter even, right? I think I heard this on the Europe broadcast last night, argue that you should trust the data on this. And Libram Paladin does perform well on paper. So I've got to give it a couple more chances. Namely, Mighty can still get a win with it, but the last remaining matchup is into the Burn Shaman, which I would say is one of the most difficult for Libram Paladin to get through because they have no way of dealing with freezes.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be a close one because I feel like the missing factor for a lot of these board-based decks versus Burn Shaman, is the heal, right? Because Libram Paladin is in such a weird spot where on one hand you are absolutely correct, right? It's fully dependent on board. You need to get there with just continual development of pressure, hit them down in the late game. But honestly, Libram Paladin is perfectly fine with just a stalemate situation. Like if they have a bunch of big taunts in play, Shaman can't chew through them, but every turn you're going, you know, as soon as you go down to like 15, 20 health, you play a Libram of Hope. Later on in the game, you can play Lightforged Carriel and hope they don't have Rustrot Viper at that point. Like, there are ways that you can counteract that burn damage, and it feels a lot of the time like Shaman has infinite freeze, but they don't. They can freeze your whole board for like 4 turns maximum, which is most of the time enough to win the game. But against Libram Paladin, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure.
It's true. You do get to very tense spots in the matchup where the board does just become a war of giant frozen taunts versus giant snowfall guardians and macaws. And
Right.
Because those taunts tend to have divine shield and there's often no punish for Paladin just stacking all of their buffs on those taunts, Shaman has to go through a lot of hoops to generate the appropriate devolving missiles or something like that. Then the Paladin actually has a lot of time, but you brought up exactly the sort of heart of the matchup in the Lightforged Carriel, because that being in the deck kind of counters the ability for Shaman to be able to burst over the top, right? If they just buy time with freeze, it's very realistic they can put together a hand that bursts for 23 plus damage, and oftentimes the Paladin won't be at full by that time. But the fact that there is Carriel often offsets that, so Lamby has to also find the Viper. It's a lot of pieces that need to come together.
A reasonable play here for lambyseries. I obviously love the way that Mighty is playing this out. I think this is like the only acceptable way to go for this game, apart from, I don't know, maybe saving the coin and doing this play on turn 3, because it just gives you a strong play now, makes it difficult for your opponent, and of course, almost guarantees that you are going to have a minion stuck on board for next turn for the Libram or the Hand of Adal, be it the Trog or the horse afterwards. But it's a nice top deck for lambyseries. With this Sleep Breaker, he's able to keep up on board and almost more importantly, keep that card draw rolling. Get himself the multicaster as soon as possible.
The big deal, though, that Mighty has already fished out a Lightning Bolt from Lamby. That's one of the most efficient pieces of burn expended. Gets another Hand of Adult to keep the cycle going. Very, very nice. Has a very firm hold on the board right now, but Lamby picks up Multicaster on demand. That's pretty great. With the Lightning Bloom played, he'll have represented all the spell schools, right? Oh, sorry, has he not used the Wind Chill yet?
I don't think so, yeah. I think that's the one extra needed, which does make things a little awkward on this turn.
True. So he's going to greed it a little more and can spend the last mana on Phoenix if he likes. This is a bit of an early Phoenix, but honestly, just valuing it for eventually becoming a 2-3 with some upside if you draw Landside or something like that, even if you're not dealing lethal, I think is worth playing it out for.
Would you argue that lambyseries in drawing the Wildpaw Caverns got the punish for making his order of play? Because he could have gone Wind Chill first, and I'm wondering if there were any spell damage minions he could have discovered that would have stopped him from going Bloom Wildpaw Caverns if he discovered them off of the Primordial Studies.
Good point. I can't quite think of any minion.
Because that just feels much more important than setting up multicaster next turn to me.
True. I mean, having a 3-4 already awake and ready to attack this turn, or having been traded by the 4-2, would have been a very big deal indeed. But it could be that Lamby is just holding out for a landslide instead. That's a much more efficient way of dealing with the entire board. Brukan also bloomable next turn, which will deal with a lot of these minions if Mighty does not play around that 2 health breakpoint.
Whoa, lambyseries really basically hoping here that there isn't a Aldor Truthseeker. But while the strongest play isn't necessarily available for Mighty, this Devout Pupil is still very, very strong, pushing lambyseries far behind on board.
Can play it for free as well.
Oh yeah.
They'll end up floating a mana in that situation, which feels bad. So you're supposed to play the Pupil first and then the Libram.
I do love
Simply correct. Mighty.
Yes, he does it. Mighty knows what's up.
And he also actually made advantage of that play.
By stacking all of the buffs on the Divine Shield minion, making Landslide as awkward as possible for Lamby. Oh, what a top deck, though.
Wow, still Brukan, okay.
Right? I mean, it's still quite effective here. Choose through a shield and 2 minions. Leaves a horse on board, and you can get 2/2/3 taunts. But I'm not gonna lie, I was looking at greeting the Snowfall Guardian. Maybe you could get even more value from the Brukan, but obviously Mighty has the potential to play even harder around it with his buffs the longer Lamby waits.
Starting to slow down again for Mighty. Thankfully, he's going to be able to bridge that gap between like turn 4, 5, and 6, where things are awkward, and turn 7, 8, and 9, where things are fantastic for the Libram Paladin. But this one turn of slowing down is exactly the breathing room that lambyseries needed, because now he can play his multicaster, he can start drawing through his deck, and set up maybe for after this chain of Snowfall Guardian, Macaw, all that goodness, potentially a 30-0 one-turn kill. It's not out of the question.
Difficult with a Zapper and a Bolt used, but not out of the question. There's still Discover effects left, and who knows, maybe the Phoenix sticks around. The problem is there's a Mutinous in the hand for Mighty, and given that Lamby's actually going for Sleepbreaker as opposed to Multicaster, it looks like the Mutinous is going to get either of these a very tasty target. Lamby valuing the hero power. Fair enough. I mean, just any additional value. Like, Mighty only has 2 big sweeping board clears, the Barov and the Samuro. I guess Cariel, but that's kind of conditional, the damage.
Oh, is Mutinous still better? Man, it's so close, right? This is a really good Cariel. You get to kill the Phoenix, which is a big difference.
Wait. Oh, yeah, because of the weapon. Yeah, that is huge.
Oh, it's close. It's close.
Wow.
Goes with the Mutinous. Gets himself Snowfall Guardian. Things looking a lot scarier now for lambyseries, who all of a sudden has to play for board the old-fashioned way.
I mean, Lamby's expression obviously showed that he was upset about that, but I would argue you'd rather the Snowfall be eaten in this spot than the Multicaster. I feel like Lamby needs the draw quite a bit, and he's ahead on board anyway. Not by a lot, but this board is still manageable for him. The 4 health breakpoint on the Pupil, very awkward indeed. So I would favor him looking what's in the Multicaster first. Because Landslide could still do a lot of work here. Misses though.
Ooh. Could be multicaster number 2 if you really want that landslide, because like you say, it's just so backbreakingly powerful here.
Yeah, and blooming out the Multicaster number 2 actually allows you to overdraft for exactly 4 damage with the Phoenix online, which is a nice breakpoint on the 5/4, but it's the Mutinous that is kind of the recurring issue here. So he could be going for Portal Overdraft instead. So the Overdraft now deals 5 on the Mutinous, or is it all just getting pushed face? All right. The brave line.
Really is. Not a million miles off lethal either.
The taunt in the way was the difference maker. brave line, but Lamby also just knows that this board is very resilient against Cariel. It's only the Sleep Breaker that immediately dies to the damage, and then you could remove one more minion with the weapon swing and one more with the 1/1, but there's still going to be at least a stag sticking around by that point, which would be game pointing for Lamby.
Oh, it's just the eternal problem with the deck, isn't it? For Paladin, it's just so stiff, it's so immobile, it's lumbering. And as lambyseries here is faced with, just 11 health to chew through this, I mean, is it just lethal on board getting through the 8/8 Divine Shield?
Yes, it is. So you trade in the 2/4, and you can Frostbite it and send a 3 attack minion in, and then you still have 11 points of damage that can go face. But sure, Lamby, let's keep drawing.
There we go.
Landslide, that's very, lethal. Yeah. Okay, Mega, Omega, Super, Giga, Hyper Lethal now.
That's what we like to see.
Getting the honorable kill as well.
An unfortunate way for Mighty to go down. Very well fought in his first series in Grandmasters, but man, in the end, this Paladin, we're seeing it. It's the curse of the deck in APAC. The stats can be as good as you like, but seemingly every time it rears its head in this region, that just tends to happen. It gets draws that look reasonable. The starts of the game seem fine, but it's just that mid-game, right, where things get so weak, so cluttered. And the Shaman just ran circles around him.
That's right. The timing of the Wild Paw Cavern for Lamby and the cleverly positioned board to not ever be feeding Mighty a Cariel on a silver platter is the way to go about the matchup. I think the one biggest issue that the Shaman can run up into is if Cariel hits the board and they are both, required to have the Viper to get rid of the weapon, and they're also losing on board, Lamby just never gave Mighty an opportunity to do so. And the mid-game curve not working out for Mighty also was very detrimental. The fact that we haven't seen an Aldar Truthseeker in the entire series has been a very frustrating point for Mighty, no doubt. But well played to Lamby still. I think he navigated the matchup this time around very, very well. Hopefully he cleans up a little bit of the Fel DH play, but on the Burn Shaman, he just looks so confident.
Yeah, agreed completely. I think the one thing again is his ordering with Primordial Studies and the out for exactly Wild Paw Caverns off of the Wind Chill, but it is very, very minor things that are not even strictly wrong at all, very much debatable, and I'd be interested to hear his thought process behind it. But it does mean that Mighty's walking away with 2 points for the week locked out, which is, obviously slightly below what you'd like, reaching the semi-finals, hitting those 3, 4, 5, but it keeps him very much in the running. He can walk away saying, okay, I did enough this week, time to bring it next week in trio and in last hero standing in the final week, but he can rest happy knowing that he's still in with a very, very good shot, whereas lambyseries moving ahead, trying to take those 5 points and the crown for this week, whereas we move on to Shaxi versus Give Please, the match I've been looking forward to all weekend, Gia, as Shaxi has that full aggro lineup that I think is going to be such an interesting matchup against Give Please.
We saw 3 Trogs get played last